Chapter 30. It felt like someone had cracked open the cocos and spilled all the coconut water out of them. Joe and I didn't speak to each other after our argument on Monday. With every day that passed, it got harder to say anything to him. Besides, he owed me an apology. It was his fault Principal Rivera had called me into her office. I started bringing something to eat from home and spending lunch in the library again to avoid the band X-Band in the cafeteria. I was back to where I was when I'd started at Posada, friendless and eating alone. "What's wrong with you?" Mom asked on Thursday afternoon. I was lying in my bed, headphones over my ears, listening to a song that reminded me of Dad and home. Not only were things over with this band, but since our last conversation, I felt like talking and texting with Dad was awkward. Even though he kept reassuring me, I was afraid he really did feel like I was picking Mrs. Hidalgo's advice over his. "Nothing's wrong," I said. "You've been moping around all week. Are you sick?" She put her hand on my forehead. "I'm not sick, Mom," I said. "Did you have an argument with Joe?" she asked. "I noticed you haven't visited him in the last few days." "It's nothing," I said. "I'm fine." "Are you going to be okay to go to Fall Fiesta on Saturday?" she asked. "It's supposed to be fun, and I support anything that helps the school." "No," I said. "I'm not going." Mom sighed and shook her head a little, making the oval-shaped Guadalupe earrings she wore move. The little Guadalupe swung on their crescent moons back and forth, like girls on the playground swings. "Okay, Malu, I'm not going to pry, but I thought you said you weren't going to pry." "But," Mom continued, "I know moving away from Dad and everything you know and love, everything you listed in that zine you left in my bag hasn't been easy." "You read it?" I didn't even think she'd bothered. "Of course I did," Mom said. "So why did you bring me here anyway?" I asked. "Malu, I loved your zine, but you knew it wasn't going to change anything, right?" Mom asked. "Look, I know that finding Kalaka and becoming friends with Joe has helped you feel at least a little more comfortable here. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I hope you can work it out. It's been good to see you happy." I pulled my pillow over my face and waited for her to leave. It was probably just as well we weren't doing the talent show. It was all a silly plan. A punk rock Cielito Lindo and me singing Spanish? We'd probably end up looking ridiculous. "Hey, I need some coffee badly," she said. "Would you please go to Kalaka with me?" I hadn't been to Kalaka all week. But what if Joe was there? Mrs. Hidalgo would surely be around, and I didn't think I could face her either. "I can't," I said. "Let me know if you change your mind," Mom said. "I'm leaving soon." I stayed behind my pillow until she left the room. The sun was shining in through the windows, the autumn light hitting the wall. I decorated with pictures of bands I'd discovered the way... I skipped a line, sorry. Pictures of bands. I discovered that the way the sun shines in the fall is exactly like writers describe it in books. I always thought it was something they made up, but it's true that even though it was starting to get cold, all the colors around me looked warmer and richer and made me feel like I was wrapped in a fuzzy blanket. I grabbed my book and headphones and went outside to sit on the porch. Senora Aurelia was camped out with her music and her crocheting supplies. "Y esa cara?" Senora Aurelia asked, looking up. "Is there something on my face?" I wiped my mouth with my hand. "Sí," she replied. "Tristeza. What makes you sad?" I sat down on the swing and watched her hands move quickly as she worked her single needle and a ball of yarn into what looked like another toilet paper cover. "Nothing," I said. "Humph," Senora Aurelia grunted. "I didn't just fall off the cilantro truck." I imagined a truck full of cilantro. I would jump off that thing, not wait to fall off. "My Joe has been sad too," she said. "What's going on with you kids?" "He has?" I asked. I'd seen Joe around school, but I didn't think he looked especially broken up. "Is it love?" she asked with a twinkle in her eye. I felt my face turn red. "No way," I said a little louder than I'd planned. "Mm-hmm," she said and smiled. "It's not," I said indignantly. "Our band broke up." "Like the Beatles, no?" Senora Aurelia said. "It's not like the Beatles," I said, even though I had no idea why or how the Beatles had broken up. I think I messed up. "Bueno, and what do you do when you make a mess?" Senora Aurelia asked. "Clean it up?" Senora Aurelia didn't say anything. She just kept crocheting. The front door opened and Mom came out. She greeted Senora Aurelia. "I'm leaving," she said to me. "Last chance to walk with me with your favorite mom." Senora Aurelia laughed and I rolled my eyes. "Is your plan to just never go to Kalaka again?" she asked. I know Mrs. Hidalgo would hate for that to happen. I thought about the coffee and Mrs. Hidalgo's vegan treats and my favorite conchas. I didn't want to stay away from Calaca. I missed it. I missed Mrs. Hidalgo, and I missed Joe too. So I got up and we said goodbye to Senora Oralia. Bring me back un marranito, she called after us, but not a bigan one. Inside Calaca, the smell of coffee filled the air, and the band I recognized from our first practice played over the speakers. Mrs. Hidalgo was busy placing flowers on a table against a wall. She looked up when we walked in. Magali and Malou, she greeted us and waved us over. Come here, I want to show you something. An ofrenda? Mom asked as we walked over to the table. Ay, Ana, it's beautiful. What is it? I asked. An ofrenda is an offering, Mrs. Hidalgo said. We've been doing this every year for El Dia de los Muertos since we opened. Anyone can bring photos or items to honor loved ones who have died and place them on this altar. It's a way to celebrate and remember, Mom said. We should bring photos of Abuelo. What do you think? I nodded and looked at the smiling faces in the old yellowed photos and the not-so-old photos that were set on the table. The surface was covered in overlapping rebosos of different colors. Bright marigolds looked like little suns sprouting from glass jars. White skulls had colorful sequin eyes and pretty designs on their faces. Those skulls are made of sugar, Mrs. Hidalgo said. Really? My eyes widened. Can you eat them? Sure, Mom said. Your dentist won't mind. She and Mrs. Hidalgo laughed. It's great once people start leaving things because the table fills with all kinds of items. These items tell stories, and you get a sense of all the lives and interests of the departed and how much people still love and miss them, Mrs. Hidalgo said. She ran her fingers gently over a shiny harmonica and smiled. This belonged to my papa. He used to sit outside after dinner and play it. It's lovely, Ana, Mom said. If you have something you want to bring for your abuelo, I would really love that. We definitely will, Mom said. This is a great way to keep this tradition alive and to share it with the community. I'll leave some space for you then, Mrs. Hidalgo said. No, why don't you two grab a seat and I'll be over there in a minute to take your order. I started to follow Mom, but Mrs. Hidalgo stopped me with a hand on my arm. I know what happened, Malou, and I'm sorry to hear you and Joe aren't speaking. He's been down all week. I didn't know what to say. Should I tell Mrs. Hidalgo that I was sad about the band too? He's in the back if you want to talk, okay? I don't know, I said. You guys worked really hard, and the world needs the Cocos. She smiled like she meant it. Thanks, Mrs. Hidalgo, I said. I wasn't in a hurry to sit with Mom, so I browsed the bookcase near Frida. Cielito Lindo came on, and I listened to the Lola B song like I probably never would. I was sure Mrs. Hidalgo had played it just for me. A picture book about a bird called the quetzal caught my eye. The illustrations showed a little green fuzzy-headed creature. It looked like it had spiked hair, a little punk rock bird. Its long tail feathers were green and turquoise, and a bright splash of red feathers covered its breast. What's that? I closed the book on my finger and turned around to find Joe. It's a resplendent quetzal, I said, shifting my weight from one foot to another. I was nervous and I didn't know what to say, so I showed him the page. That bird is so not cute, Joe said. He rubbed the back of his neck. I could tell he was nervous, too. It says here that the quetzal was sacred to the Aztec and Maya people, I said. Sacred, huh? Joe repeated. That's cool. I took one last look at the little bird before closing the book and placing it back on the shelf. My mom told me you were here, Joe said. I'm here, I said. I looked down at my shoes, rubbing the tape off one with the sole of the other. I'm sorry about the flyer, Joe said. It's okay, I said. I'm sorry I got so mad. I should have been more careful, he shrugged. Yeah, well, it's done, I said. And I guess it wasn't as big a deal as I made it. So what's up with the band? Joe asked. Are we really over? I don't know, I said. There hasn't been a band this week, that's for sure. We could still do this, Joe said. It's not too late. But we haven't practiced in days, I said. Besides, Principal Rivera knows about our plan. Well, does she really know about our plan? Joe asked. All she saw was a flyer. Big deal. And we weren't going to set up inside the school, right? We could just start up after the talent show ends. That way we get more of an audience anyway. I guess you're right, I said. There's no way Rivera can accuse us of disrupting, Joe went on. And if we do, it's for a good reason, right? I thought about it. I'd already accepted that we weren't a band anymore, but I really did want to do it, even if it was risky. Come on, Joe said. This was your idea. I mean, we could do it without you, but I sing like an alley cat. That's true, I said and laughed. Besides, Joe went on, we coconuts gotta stick together. Yeah, okay, I said, pretending he had twisted my arm. Let's do it. Wait here, Joe said. I have something for you. He ran into the back of the room and returned a minute later. He pulled something out of a bag and tossing it to me. I shook it out and held up a t-shirt. This is the raddest thing ever, I said. The red t-shirt had the band's name and 4 coconuts wearing mariachi hats printed on it in black, just like Joe had drawn in his sketch pad. On the back was the motto we had chosen, not your abuela's music. I can't believe you made these after everything that happened, I said. I made them over the weekend and was going to give them out on Monday's practice, Joe said, but that never happened. I finished for him. I rolled up the shirt so Mom wouldn't see it. So, then, we are in for Saturday? He asked. For sure, I said. Let's get one practice in tomorrow. Cool, Joe said. What about Benny and Ellie? I'll take care of that, I said. I just hoped they would still want to be a part of the band, too.